7 minutes after 8 o'clock. Now, Jaguar Land Rover has confirmed that its UK factories, including in Hale Wood on Merseyside, will remain closed for another week as the company continues to struggle with the aftermath of a cyber attack. Staff have been told not to return to work until Wednesday, the 24th of September at the earliest. Motor industry expert Professor David Bailey of Birmingham Business School estimates the company has lost around £1.7 billion in revenue and £120 million in profits. Well, Maria Eagle is Labour MP for Garston. Before the boundary changes, Hale Wood was in her constituency, and I'm delighted to say that Maria Eagle joins me now. Thank you very much for coming on the programme this morning. Are you surprised that staff are not returning to work for at least another week?
Worried about it, because I think the longer it goes on, the more concerning it is for the profitability of the company, and particularly for the capability of the supply chain to keep going. Because Jaguar Land Rover operate a just-in-time manufacturing system, the local supplier companies, they provide the parts that they make for Jaguar Land Rover just in time for the cars to be built. And so because the logistics system's gone down, they can't do that. There aren't any cars being built, and you've got to worry about the state of health of some of those smaller companies which are highly reliant on Jaguar Land Rover work. And of course, once JLR do get going again, if there are holes in their supply chain, because it's just in time manufacturing, they will also have significant problems in managing to make cars. So yes, I'm getting more concerned.
And it is the issue. I mean, the workers at Jaguar Land Rover, they're at home, but they are still being paid. But as you say,
they're being paid.
Yeah, but as you say, you know, those suppliers in the chain, some of which are quite small, are going to start to have cash flow issues and all the rest of it. This is really worrying, isn't it, for that supply chain?
And I've heard from some of my colleagues in the West Midlands that some of their smaller companies that supply Jaguar Land Rover are already in quite a lot of distress. So that is a big concern. Well, I'm also a bit concerned that I don't think Jaguar Land Rover are telling stakeholders like the local MPs enough about what's going on. We read more speculation in the newspapers, and when we talk to Jaguar Land Rover, and it took us to have to call an urgent question in the Commons before they talk to us at all. We weren't getting much information out of them before that. And now the information they're giving us is very, very limited. And, you know, I've been talking and visiting this plant for nearly 30 years as the local member of parliament. And it's the least communicative that they've ever been. And so that also concerns me because, of course, the local MP is the first port of call for people who are worried, workers, for example, or small companies. And if we don't know what's going on with a bit more detail, then it's hard for us to reassure. So there are a lot of concerns at the moment, I think.
Well, we can come back to that in just a few moments about why you might think that they are being maybe less open about what the situation is. But what is the government going to do? What is your government going to do about this, Maria Eagle?
Well, I've talked to government ministers who are responsible, and I've talked to the company. And the company have said quite clearly to local MPs of all political parties who've engaged with them in meetings that everything that they're asking of the government is doing. So I'm aware that there are talks going on between the company and various different departments, business and treasury. So I know that there's good communication there. I mean, I'm not privy to the conversations, so I don't know precisely what they've been discussing. But I'm certain that, this concern about the supply chain and the smaller companies in it that we were talking about. Remember, there's 3,500 people work at Hale Wood, but there's over 200,000 people in the supply chain around the country. So you're talking about a lot of really good manufacturing jobs and really highly skilled people who are providing precision parts for these great machines that Jaguar Land Rover make. And so there is concern about that. And I suspect that the focus of the conversations with government will probably be about how to help those companies if and when they need help.
Well, they're going to need help very, very soon, by all accounts. So a furlough scheme?
Some of them already do. Yeah, some of them already do.
Will you be pushing for a furlough scheme from your government?
I mean, I think from my point of view and from Jaguar's point of view, if the supply chain companies start going bust, then it poses a major threat to them restarting their production. So I think any discussions ought to be focused on how to stop that happening. But the other discussions need to be about how fast Jaguar Land Rover can get up and running, because I am concerned that they seem to be very focused on doing this forensic audit, but they can take months and months and months. And indeed, the speculation in the newspapers today that they're going to not reopen until November. Well, that would be really difficult, really very difficult. So I think we need more information from the company about how likely these speculations that we're seeing in newspapers are to be true, because the reality is, if they don't tell us what's going on, then we can't reassure about these speculations that you see appearing in newspapers. I mean, if November is true, then that is very concerning.
So, again, would you support and call for a furlough scheme for the supply chain companies?
I would encourage the government to do all that it can to make sure that the supply chain remains intact for Jaguar Land Rover restarting its production. But then again, I also want to know from JLR much more detail about what their plans are to reopen. Because at the moment, all we're getting is, oh, they're off for another week and another week. And then I read in the newspapers this morning it might be November. Well, I don't think it's unreasonable for local MPs to hear the truth from the company. So I'd encourage them to be more forthcoming to their stakeholders about what's really going on. As far as I'm concerned, we're all in it together, but we need to know what the situation is in order to help in the best way that we can.
How much would a furlough scheme cost, and can the government afford it?
Well, I mean, I'm sure that if there are discussions going on, that's partly what's being discussed between Treasury and JLR, but I haven't been given any details about what those discussions might be. It depends, doesn't it, on how long it's going to take JLR to get back up and running. And I think that's the missing piece of the jigsaw that nobody really knows, because they're not being very forthcoming. Well, I'd encourage them to be more forthcoming. You know, in my 29 years going in and out of that company, they've always been very positive and open with their briefings. They've trusted MPs not to give out details that would be damaging, but that's not what's happening this time, and I don't really know why that change has happened.
I mean, what you're saying is quite worrying, Marie Regal, because it's one thing, you know, Jaguar Land Rover being completely open about the problems and everything else, which you wouldn't expect a commercial company to do, but
no,
you wouldn't expect that. But you would expect them to confide in the local members of Parliament. Why do you think they're being so secretive?
I don't know. But that's what's worrying me, if anything, is because they've not been like this in the past. So I don't know. And I've encouraged them privately, and I'm doing so publicly, to be more forthcoming. And they know they can trust their MPs. And there's no reason for them to not tell us what's going on to the extent that they know. We've always been big friends of the company, and have always shown over the many years that we can be trusted. So, and I'm talking about MPs from all parties. So we're all very much in favour of our manufacturing base, our automotive base, when we have that in our constituencies. There's no way any of us would do anything to damage the future of the company. But we just need more information, and I hope that, to encourage the company to be more forthcoming.
Do you worry, finally, Marie Regal, that in a year's time, when Jaguar Land Rover announced the closure of Halewood, that one of the reasons will be because of the effect of this cyber attack back in the August-September period of 2025?
Expecting them to do any such thing. I'm expecting them to get their manufacturing back up and running. I mean, they were very clear with MPs that the first aim of the company is to sell cars, and therefore the second aim is to be able to get their production facilities back up and running. They're very clear about that. I know that they want to do that. We just need them to tell us about when that might be, instead of this drip of, oh, here's an extra week of people being off. Because the longer this goes on, the more worried people are going to be, and the more difficult it's going to be for the supply chain.
Maria Regal, Labour MP for Garston, thank you so much for joining us today on BBC Radio Merseyside. And the government spokesperson has said, we recognise the significant impact this incident has had on JLR and their suppliers and know this is a worrying time for those affected. Business and Trade Minister Chris Bryant met with the CEO of JLR last week to discuss the impact of the incident. We are also in daily contact with the company and our cyber experts about resolving this issue. We will keep you posted, of course, here on BBC Radio Merseyside as that story develops.